Manchester City, Liverpool and Chelsea will all start this season under a head coach who was not there last season, and they are not the only ones. So the useful question is not who signed who, it's a simpler one, and it survives the whole season. What is this team going to look like? Because there are 20 clubs in this league, and there are nowhere near 20 systems. There are five families, and every side in the division sits in one of them, or in 3 cases is still deciding. Each family has a tell, one behaviour visible inside 30 seconds that gives the whole system away. Learn the 5 tells and you never need a team news graphic again. Here are all 5. Positional control. Possession is not the goal here, it's the method. The pitch is divided into zones and the team fills them regardless of who ends up where. A back 3 and 2 in front of them to build, a front 5 to attack, and the ball won back inside 5 seconds of losing it, rather than a retreat to safety. The tell, the fullback who isn't on the touchline. When the ball goes back to the centre-backs and a fullback steps inside into midfield instead of overlapping outside it, you are watching positional control. Nothing else in football asks a defender to do that. Who's in it? Arsenal, where Arteta was appointed in December 2019 and is still there. Manchester City, where Maresca has come back to a club he already coached inside. Chelsea, where Alonso arrives having taken Leverkusen through a whole league season unbeaten in 2024. And Brighton, where Huertzler has run a version of it since 2024. Notice what that list is derived from. 2 of those 4 haven't taken charge of a competitive match at their new club yet. So we're not predicting results here, we're reading a back catalogue. Verdict, 8 out of 10. You cannot press it conventionally because the spare man is always somewhere you aren't. You cannot counter it because the rest defense is built before the attack starts. It doesn't score higher only because it's the most studied system in world football. Every opponent has a rehearsed plan against it, even if few can execute it. The man-oriented press. Not zonal pressing. Man marking, everywhere, all at once. Every outfield player is given a person rather than a space. The trigger is the backwards pass, and once the ball is won, the route to goal is measured in seconds rather than passes. The tell, the centre-back who follows a striker into midfield. In every other family on this list, that is a mistake. Here it is the instruction. And here is the finding of this episode. 3 clubs bought the same pressing doctrine inside one window. Liverpool appointed Iraola, whose Bournemouth side ran one of the most aggressively man-oriented presses in the league. Bournemouth replaced him with Rose, a Red Bull Salzburg and Leipzig coach. And Newcastle appointed Geisler, also out of Red Bull Salzburg, by way of 2 Asian Champions League titles. 1 pressing doctrine, 3 clubs, 1 summer. Nobody announced that as a trend. It is one anyway. Verdict, 9 out of 10. It is the only family that makes the opposition's goalkeeper the problem. A back 4 that can't play out isn't merely inconvenienced by this, it's unusable. Sides have to abandon their own build-up and go long, which is the entire point. Highest score on the axis because it forces the biggest change in what an opponent was going to do. The structured counter. Concede the ball on purpose, in a compact mid-block, and attack the space the opponent leaves behind. The block is the setup for the attack, not an alternative to it. The tell, the deliberate pause. The team wins the ball and then does nothing for 2 seconds while 3 players sprint past it. A deep block clears it. A pressing team shoots. This family waits. Who's in it? Aston Villa, where Emery has run this since 2022, and turned it into Champions League football. Nottingham Forest, who hired Glasner in 2026. The coach who won a European trophy with a back 3 version of it at Frankfurt, and an FA Cup with it at Crystal Palace. And Crystal Palace themselves, where Sage arrives in 2026 from a lens side built on the same principle. Verdict, 7 out of 10. Hard to play against if you want the ball. Close to harmless if you don't, which is exactly why it scores 7 and not 9. 2 of these sides meeting each other is the worst 90 minutes in the league. and both managers will be perfectly content. The set-piece family in a moment. There's a card up there for the video that explains why every club in this league suddenly has a coach for it. The restart maximisers. The system's centre of gravity is the dead ball. Open play becomes a way of earning corners, throw-ins and free kicks in the right areas, and the rehearsed phase is where the goals are budgeted to come from. The tell, nobody rushes, the ball goes out and the team walks. 6 players arrive in a preset shape before the taker has moved. A side that hurries its corners is not in this family. This is where the dead 20 lives. The 20 seconds a football match spends stopped, over and over, that the sport treated as nothing for 100 years. Who's in it? Brentford, whose head coach Andrews joined the club as its set-piece coach in 2024 and had the top job a year later. That is the clearest single piece of evidence that this is a real identity rather than a bolt-on. A club promoted its dead ball specialist to run the whole team. Sunderland, where Le Brise's promoted side overachieved on restarts. And Everton under Moyes, who has leaned on the dead ball throughout his career. Verdict, 8 out of 10. It attacks the one phase of the game where a coaching staff can outwork a wage bill, and there's no way to opt out. You cannot decline to defend a corner. 8 rather than 9, only because it still needs the rest of the game to generate the restarts. The deep block. Defend the box, not the ball. 2 banks of 4 inside the defensive third, concede territory without limit, and attack through one long diagonal to an isolated forward. The economics are survival, and there's no shame in that. The tell, the striker who is alone by design. Not out of shape, 30 yards clear of the nearest teammate every single time the ball is cleared. He isn't a striker. He's an outlet. Who's in it? All 3 promoted clubs, Hull under Jakirovic, Coventry under Lampard, and Ipswich, where O'Neill was appointed in 2026, plus Leeds, where Farke has run a far more possession-heavy version at times and reverts to this against the top sides. Verdict, 4 out of 10. The lowest score on the axis, and it isn't a criticism. A deep block is genuinely hard to beat. It's also the easiest system in this league to play against, because it asks you to change nothing at all. You do what you were going to do anyway, with less room to do it in. Hard to beat, easy to play against. That distinction is the whole reason this axis exists. Which leaves 3 clubs whose systems cannot honestly be placed, and saying so out loud is the point of this section: Manchester United. Carrick took the job in January 2026 and finished 3rd, which is a result, not yet an identity. Half a season played under emergency conditions. Tottenham, De Zerbi arrives with one of the most distinctive systems in Europe, baiting a press by standing on the ball inside his own penalty area. Whether the squad he inherited can execute it is an open question, and there is no evidence either way yet. Fulham. Arbeloa arrives in 2026 out of the Real Madrid academy with an interim record and no senior body of work to read. Anyone can sort 20 clubs into 5 boxes. The honest version leaves 3 of them out until the evidence arrives. So these 3 get the bar as well, and the bar refuses to fill. Not enough evidence. It isn't a naught, and it isn't a guess dressed up as analysis. It's the one answer a rating out of 10 can't give you. Every club placed. Positional control. Arsenal, Manchester City, Chelsea, Brighton. The man-oriented press. Liverpool, Bournemouth, Newcastle. The structured counter. Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace. The restart maximisers. Brentford, Sunderland, Everton. The deep block. Hull, Coventry, Ipswich, Leeds. And the unwritten. Manchester United, Tottenham, Fulham. 17 placed on evidence. 3 left open. So, the summer's hiring wasn't random. 3 clubs bought the same pressing doctrine inside one window. A set-piece coach became a head coach. The league isn't converging on one way to play. It's consolidating into a smaller number of clearer ways to play, and the clubs that changed manager mostly changed family, not just personnel, ranked by how hard they are to play against. 9. The man-oriented press. It makes your goalkeeper the problem. 8. Positional control. The spare man is never where you are. 8. The restart maximisers. You cannot decline to defend a corner. 7. The structured counter. It only hurts you if you want the ball. 4. The deep block. Hard to beat, easy to play against. And a question mark for the 3 we won't place yet. 5 families, 1 tell each. Your next watch is on the end screen. Start anywhere. Which family does your club actually belong to? And which one do you wish it did?